Hey everyone, Art McDermott back, Successful Aging Academy, and this is part 2 of our 2019 Life Changer Plan series. I think this, like I said, is probably going to be about 4 of these. Today is deceivingly simple, but it's the point that most people never even get past. Right? It's simplest. It's very, very simple, like I said, but it's so challenging without a plan in place to get past this step that most people never succeed. And so let's dive into this one. All right, first thing so today we're talking about removing obstacles, okay? This is removing, all right? What is in your way? Again, most people have something in their way, or we would all walk around shred six-packs and just smiles on our faces and life would be wonderful, right? And it's just not that way. So everyone's got these obstacles they need to get out of their way. So let's look at how you do that. And this is a little bit of psychology at play here, and I think most trainers in the industry really have to know this, maybe some of them a little bit better than they do, to really get the results that as clients would expect of them. So number one is triggers and patterns. Okay? And this simple thing is that psychology I'm talking about. Everyone has triggers. I mean, our brains are very simplistic at some levels, right? But obviously wonderfully complex at others. Our behaviors and patterns and beliefs and all these things that we do day in and day out are generally the result of a cue, a behavior that is the result of that cue, and a reward. Once we have those in place, we have the foundations of powerful habits, right? Good habits, bad habits. There's some great books out there that I can send along a list of for you to read about how to master these habits. I mean, Tony Robbins has made an entire career really talking about patterns and triggers and how to change all that. So let's give some examples of triggers. I do a lot of work. I recently did a talk on smoking cessation. I've come up with an entire course on that. It's in the membership site. And knowing the triggers, that some people don't think about at all, knowing your triggers is the key to changing a pattern as bad and damaging as smoking cigarettes. So if your trigger, for example, is you get up in the morning, you clean up, you get ready for work, and then the next thing you do, you hop in your car and you go right to Dunkin' Donuts to get a cup of coffee, and with that coffee you have a cigarette on the way to work. Right? That's a very powerful pattern. It's not just the nicotine, right? It's the behavior that you follow, and that pattern that you do every day is so deeply ingrained, it's very challenging to change. And that's why it's a lot more than, take a nicotine replacement patch and everything goes away, right? If we're that easy, nobody would be smoking. So these triggers, knowing your triggers, and that these triggers, and let's talk about food. Here's an example. I have a client whose pattern and whose trigger was, and this is a big one for a lot of people. If you have lunch at noon every day, for example, you may go, when are you having dinner? You are probably not going to have dinner for 6 hours. There's maybe even longer, right? If you throw a gym workout in there, throw a long commute in there, you could go hours without eating, which is in itself a recipe for disaster. So let's say when you get home at 6 p.m., having not eaten since noon, you're going to snack very quickly. And this one individual, that was his pattern that got him in a lot of trouble. Basically, he realized that the vast majority of calories he took in during the course of a day happened between that arrival home from work and when dinner hit the table. There's a span of time in there, and he was ingesting massive amounts of calories during that time. So his trigger was probably low blood sugar because it's been so long, but just that pattern of coming home from work, put your stuff down, let's start thinking about dinner, and immediately start eating. So it was always associated with that time of day, which is an important trigger. And obviously the feedback, it's quick, easy carbohydrates, so you get that pleasure of getting the sugar levels back up and the taste of what you're snacking on. That's a very powerful trigger. So what I'd like you to do is to think about what triggers you. All right, I've talked with some clients at the end of the workday, which seems to be a common area of downfall, is having an alcoholic beverage, right? They want to have a drink at a certain time every day, whether they're on the deck barbecuing or prepping dinner. They're going to have a glass of wine. For this particular individual, it was a glass of scotch. The scotch on the rocks he would have at the end of the day. And so that was a very powerful trigger. You know, the alcohol made him feel a little better, stress reduction, whatever you want to justify it as. The end of the day, all right, there was a cue, right? And he did the behavior. The behavior is having the drink, and the reward is, I feel better, this is good, it tastes good, and I feel less stress, and I can relax and unwind after the day. So knowing what your patterns and triggers are, whether it's food related, exercise related, alcohol or smoking related, whatever it may be, right? This obstacles we're talking about, getting them out of the way, all right? You need to write down what the triggers are and what time of day do they happen, right? Are they associated with certain people? Are they associated with certain situations? You know, in a work situation, maybe work is very stressful, and at 10:30 every day, you just got to go outside. You got to have a Coke, right? A can of Coke or some sugary snack because you rushed out of the house without breakfast, so your blood sugar is really low. And there's a lot of different triggers out there, but you need to understand what they are. And that ties directly into our next very, very important topic is rote behaviors. All of these things we're talking about, we do without thinking. I heard that, and this was, I believe, Dr. John Berardi, a great nutritionist guy that I happen to read a lot of. He said that it's an interesting stat that we eat about the same amount of food every day, prepared the same way, like I said, in the same amounts, at about the same time, with very little change. Now that's a really strong examples of rote behavior, right? We're not coming up with brand new recipes every day of the week. We're eating the same stuff over and over again. No matter if those behaviors and foods and patterns are getting us in trouble or not, right? So it's just so ingrained, we could realize that it's killing us, right? It's elevating our blood pressure, our body fat is in the obese level, whatever it may be. All right, even though we recognize that, we can see a scale, right? We know how our clothes are fitting, but we still follow the same rote behavior. How can you disrupt that? How can you change that? So the psychology now is plugging in something to disrupt these patterns. Whenever, and I tell people, we did this in the smoking cessation course, whenever I feel like having a cigarette, I will do this, all right? And you plug in some new behavior, all right? So rather than just lighting up a cigarette, because that's what you've always done at a certain time of day, you go, wait, why don't I break that pattern? And back to the example I told you of a client who ate a lot of food at the end of the workday, he was successful at plugging in a new behavior whenever that trigger struck. That is, he came home, put his stuff down, and immediately changed, grabbed his jacket, and went out the door without even thinking about it. Just do it. So that becomes just as powerful a pattern as the eating used to be. Okay? So as long as you ingrain it, that's a great thing. All right? The next thing is going to have, and this really should be at the beginning, is, we talked about this before, I've done blogs on this before, it's so important I can't even express it. Having a why. What is your purpose? Right? If you sit back and say, I'm just going to be motivated to do this and get it done, right? Well, motivation, that is self-discipline, is an exhaustible resource. You will run out, and that will bring out failure, okay? You need to have a deep, moving reason why you're going to do something different. That could be a medical scare. It could be the death of a friend or family member. It could be something jolting you awake to realize, wow, okay, I need to change that pattern. All right, you need to have a deep reason. For a lot of people, it's their kids. You know, I want to be around for my kids, so that's my motivation to stop this damaging behavior that's been ingrained from years of triggers and patterns. Right, all this rote behavior. I need to change that, and you can just plug in new behavior. Your brain is a very simplistic machine in that sense, as I mentioned. All right, so you need to have a why. And that only works, folks, if you write it down. You've got to write it down. It has no meaning. It has no weight if you don't write it down. What is your real reason? I know that there was a program years ago, and I thought it was a great one, that gyms used to have, that they would give new members a keychain, one of those clear plastic keychains, and the requirement was you got to slide a picture in there of your why, right? Maybe it's a picture of your kids, right, and family, whatever it may be. So you could see it all the time. You've heard of people taping images of themselves in their favorite bathing suit to the fridge. So they, every time they walk over there, out of rote behavior, at 7:30 in the evening to grab the Haagen-Dazs from the freezer, they disrupt that pattern somehow. They have a why. Now they can stop, right? I came up with something. I could see this over and over again and see how important it was. So what I did was I wrote something called the Successful Aging Scorecard. And I'm going to get that to you just so you can take something like this. You do it right online and give you a copy of it to print out, and you can fill in the numbers by pen or pencil if you want. But it's going to be set up in a form so you can just answer these questions on a sliding scale on all of these things we're talking about, right? How are you ready for change? What are you willing to do? Do you know what your obstacles are? Your awareness of your issues? Things like that. It is really a great summary, and it points out in a glaring way where you may be missing the mark. Let's just say it. All right. So I'm going to get that scorecard to you. I'm actually going to post it on the Successful Aging page on Facebook. All right. So you can, if you type that in, you can find us. And this is an open page, not the membership one. So it'll be there for you, this scorecard. So check it out. And it's a nice written visual way of saying, oh, okay, this is where I'm missing the mark. All right. So we've covered today, then removing obstacles comes down to understanding your triggers, knowing that these triggers will form patterns, deeply ingrained patterns, and this result in rote behavior that we do without even thinking. You ever do that in front of the TV? Next thing you know, you finish the whole box of stuff, the whole bag of stuff that was probably not a good decision. All right, rote behavior. So, and understanding, of course, what is your deeper, most powerful, most emotional reason why you want to change. You've got to know what that is, and you've got to write it down and live it. All right, if you want any of these to change. All right. Now, next time we're going to dive into some more specifics on all this. This is the most important part. Notice we're not jumping into, oh, here's your best diet. Here's the exercise routine that I recommend for you. That's all available, and I can certainly send that to you. But understanding what's going on in your brain and getting your brain on your side, right? That power on your side is much more important. So we'll see you in part 3 next time. Please write these things down and start helping yourself. We'll talk to you soon.